Hi all, AD here from Hunts & Johns. As always, thank you so much for clicking on the video. I'm in deepest, darkest Norfolk and I'm at a little village called Hockwold, and this church is called St. Peter's. Now it is a redundant church, but it's under the care of the church's Conservation Trust. I don't know anything about it at all, but let's go and have an explore. St. Peter's Church in Hockwold is a medieval church sitting quietly in rural Norfolk. The church dates mainly from between the 14th and the 16th centuries, although there was a church recorded here as early as 1254. As we walk through the porch and into the nave, one of the first things that strikes you is the sheer sense of space and light. The big perpendicular windows flood the interior with daylight, and despite the church no longer being used for regular worship, it still feels very alive with history. Now, St. Peter's was declared redundant in the 20th century and is now cared for by the church's Conservation Trust, and they're helping preserve this remarkable building for future generations. Now look up at this magnificent roof. The angel roof here is one of the real treasures of Norfolk. It dates from the 15th century and it's filled with beautifully carved wooden angels watching over the nave from above. Now, East Anglia became really famous for these angel roofs during the late medieval period, and St. Peter's has one of the most striking examples. And the roof combines hammer beam construction with richly carved figures, and even after centuries, the craftsmanship here still feels incredibly delicate and expressive. Each angel has its own personality and posture. Some appear serene and prayerful, while others seem almost animated in movement. It's one of those details that rewards slowing down and just taking time to absorb the atmosphere. And in churches like this, the roof wasn't simply structural. It was meant to inspire awe, lifting the eyes and your thoughts upwards. And then there is this beautiful historic wall paintings. Now, this faded fragment gives us a glimpse into a time when churches were much more colourful than people imagine today. Medieval interiors would once have been painted vividly with saints, patterns and religious imagery, transforming these spaces into something rich and dramatic. But what survives here today is fragmentary, but that somehow makes it more evocative. Little windows into a lost world. There's some memorials here up by the altar, and one of them is for Sir Cyril Wyche, or Wyche, not sure how you pronounce that. And he was one of the early members of the Royal Society. He was also a diplomat and a public figure in the 17th century. And his memorial is a reminder of how these village churches often contain connections to much wider national history. And the chancel itself feels wonderfully calm and spacious. And ahead of us is this beautiful east window. And this fills the chancel with coloured light, and the stained glass draws the eye immediately, and I think it stands out even more against the pale stone surroundings, and it gives the whole east end of the church a quiet glow, and I'm sure that will change constantly depending on the weather and the time of day. Now, I love this memorial. Quite unusual, but this is the second one I found in Norfolk. And when we look closely here at the bottom, you'll see the carved skull with unfolding bat-like wings, wonderfully dramatic and unmistakably symbolic. Memorial imagery like this reminds us of the fragility of life and the certainty of death. And down to the right of the altar here, there's an old piscina and a sedilia, and the piscina was used for washing sacred vessels after Mass, and the sedilia would have provided seating for the clergy during services. And it's these small details that are so easy to overlook, but they help us connect with the history of medieval worship that once took place here every day. And as we look down on the floor here, there are ledger stones everywhere beneath our feet. Some date back hundreds of years, commemorating local families and former parishioners. And in many old churches like this, the dead that were buried within the church itself must have been particularly wealthy or prominent members of the community. Sadly though, some of the stones have become worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, adding another layer of quiet history to the building. And this man must have been quite important, as he was a fellow in Cambridge and he died in 1679. And I think this ledger stone would have had brasses on the top, which are sadly now gone. And this one dates to 1746. Just going to head over towards the tower. Now there's not very much to see here. The tower itself dates from the mid-14th century and it once held several bells that would have carried across the surrounding fenland landscape, calling people to church. But even today the tower has that wonderful solid medieval feel to it with the thick walls. It feels really cool in here and it always has that lovely sense of permanence. There was a piano just sat outside, no date for that. And I'm just going to have a quick walk up into the south aisle. And there's a lovely piscina tucked away over here in the corner. The lovely aisle arcade here with its octagonal piers and the arches helps divide the church beautifully while keeping everything open and airy. And I absolutely love the light in here. It's absolutely spectacular. And as we head back outside, just take a moment to appreciate this beautiful south porch and the exterior of the church itself. It's softened by age and patches of old render, but it gives St. Peter's a wonderfully untouched appearance and it feels very deeply rooted in the landscape around it. I'm going to head back out into the churchyard and the atmosphere changes again. And I just wanted to show you this Ordnance Survey benchmark. And unusually this one is metal. It's the first metal one I found. I usually find them just etched in the stone. And these survey markers were used in mapping and levelling across Britain. And finding one still intact is always a lovely little piece of hidden history. I spotted this fenced off area at the back and there's some big tombs in there. I'm guessing that it's probably a family grouped together. I might be completely wrong. I decided I'd head in there as there was an opening around the side. It was very uneven underfoot and here, so I had to be very, very careful. But they must have been very important to have such big tombs. So I tried to read a name on here, but unfortunately, as you can see, they're absolutely covered in moss. And I didn't want to go any further along as I didn't want to fall down a hole or fall over, which I nearly did a couple of times. It just reminds you of how village life centred around churches, and I'm sure there's many generations of the families who lived and worked here buried in this churchyard. The churchyard here is wonderfully peaceful. It's full of wildlife, old trees, and it's exactly the kind of place where history and nature seem to blend together effortlessly. I'm just going to take a final slow walk around the graveyard and head out. Now, St. Peter's really left me with the impression of a church that has somehow escaped from the modern world, from its beautiful carved angel roof and the faded wall painting to its ancient memorials and this beautifully quiet churchyard. It's really one of those places where nearly every corner has a story waiting to be noticed. I'm going to wrap the video up here. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy it, if you could please hit the like, subscribe and the hype button down below. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps the algorithm and really helps my little channel out. And if you'd like to help the channel a little bit more, you can hit the buy me a coffee link down below, and that helps me make a contribution to these churches. Or if you'd like to do it directly, this one is under the care of the Churches Conservation Trust, and I'll put their details in the link below. So thank you so much, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.